I kind of want to go and ask a couple of questions on how was Highstorm for y'all. I know a couple of students did well, a couple of students definitely had a lot to learn, but I'm just curious as well. We feel pretty good about it. Send a thumbs up, either reaction or in person. I know I saw the Facebook meme about the thumbs up thing. Don't really care too much about that. Okay, so I'm glad that it looks like most people were okay. What was your problem? Hard. You were new? I hope you learned a lot. Yeah, because I know that NCAE is going to be a similar competition, which is going to be happening sometime around March. Definitely recommend that you check that out if you want to go and continue to play in that style of CTF. It gets pretty hard at first, right? You know, there's a lot of systems and patches and like, you know, all this other things you want to go and fix at first. But I'm sure you probably understand the concept of Highstorm now. And I think that either if you stay next year, I know you're going to do better. I know that if you continue to stay with fast, you continue to, you know, continue doing these competitions, I know you're definitely going to be doing better. Hey, Bryce, I know you did it for 2 years. How many? Huh? Yeah. How many points did you go up from your first year to your second year?
I went down. I was carried hard in my first year.
Really?
Yeah. We finished 24th last year.
Well, to be fair, Highstorm was a lot easier last year, though, because last year was recycled Cyber Patriots. And then I know this year it was pretty harder. I went down too. It's okay. It was pretty rough, but I know NCAE is definitely a little more tailored to beginners. So definitely come into that one when we announce it. It's NCAE. Rest of y'all too on this side. Definitely want y'all to go and play in more competitions if you can. But also another special announcement. I know that I mentioned about e-board elections, and I was also doing a lot of interviews in the background. But I want to go and welcome our new e-board members. If they just want to go and say hi. Our first one, our new ops and comms, Alex. I know he was very recently elected. Alex. But we also have our Caleb Lee, and we also have Lock Nguyen. I know they were great. I know we also saw Lock in the elections, and we also saw him in interviews and stuff, and we really appreciate just expanding our Fast family a little bit more. So definitely a big shout out to them. Please give them the same warm welcome and the same regards that I know that you've shown. The current e-boards right now, e-board members right now, definitely hold out the same, because these members, especially donating their time to go and help our general members, which is always our first priority. That's something special. That's something special, and I hope to go and really see the best work possible out of them. Are you done with your picture? No, you're fine. I'm just being mean. Oh, another special announcement. Have y'all heard about FragFest? I know I mentioned it a little bit on the Discord, but I just want to go and mention it again. FragFest is a giant LAN party. For those of you who don't know what a LAN party is, essentially where a bunch of people come together, they go and play video games together, they hold tournaments. Bronco Esports is like one of the largest clubs on this campus by far. And FragFest usually has around 700-800 people, but it's this giant gamer group that comes in. They're going to be using this CBA. So definitely check them out if you can. We're going to be volunteering with the networking. So we're working underneath esports and in collaboration with them. If any of y'all are interested in things like infrastructure or, you know, more of that kind of stuff, definitely check them out and volunteer. I believe applications close on the 21st. You can also go and check out my friend Nitty. I know they're also running that kind of stuff if you want to go work on the networking team. Let's say you're not interested in networking or you don't know a lot, you can also go and volunteer for other things. But even if you don't have experience in networking, you are able to go and join that if you are interested. I know Jeremiah is going to be there and a couple of others, good friends. I know Oda, who's currently not here, was also probably going to be coming. Definitely come in if you can. But I know it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's why I'm just going to go and just close down Friday meetings. We will be starting our Friday meetings next week, though, and also our Tuesdays, as typical. But otherwise, I think that should be the end of my spiel. Ethan, if you want to go and jump in and just talk a little bit. But please welcome our Director of Cybersecurity. I know he's also leading the cybersecurity research team this year. We really appreciate all the work he does. Definitely check out his research team too with all of his hardware hacking. Great content.
Hey everyone. So today I'll be talking about sort of an introduction to cryptography algorithms. The two ones that we're going to be focusing on today, we're going to be talking about MD5 and SHA-2, and we're also kind of going to dive deep about sort of how it works and some of the security flaws to it. So what exactly is cryptography and hashing? So cryptography is obviously the study of techniques to secure information, whether they're being stored or being sent to and from the internet. And hashing is a process of transforming a given file into a hashed text, which can no longer be reverted. This is different from encryption, where encryption, you can change it to and from, I guess, an encrypted file. And hashing in this case basically gives a file signature. So while we can't really use it ourselves, we can use this information to compare it to actual files themselves. So for, I guess, how we use hashing, there's mainly two applications. One of them is to check the integrity of a file, and the other one is for information security. So for one, to check the integrity of a file, we can basically be given a hashing key, and with that, we'll compare it to the actual file itself. So on this picture to the right, we have a picture of the distributor and the downloader. So on this bit right here, file to transmit, that's going to be the actual file itself. And on the right hashing value, that's also the key that we're going to be given. And once we download the files down here on the downloader side, we're going to be comparing that file to the actual hashing key. And if those match, then we can say for sure that those two files are the same and it hasn't been tampered with. However, if the key and the actual file are somewhat different, then that shows that the files are either different or have been tampered with. And moving on to the second point, so information security. So a lot of passwords, or I guess account information, for example, we don't want to store it in plain text. Otherwise, hackers can just get them right away and they can make a clean break for it. So rather than just saving it in plain text, we would change all these texts into hashes. So rather than sending the server your input password, it will be the password's hash, and it would then compare the password's hash that you inputted to the server's hash. So rather than just comparing password and password, we're actually comparing the hashes, the file signatures of the password. So this is an example of a hash usage. I was hacking a PS3 over the summer, and one of the files we actually had a MD5 key to compare the file to. So I'm just gonna show you the process of this. This is an example. Is it not working? Yeah. I'll just basically kind of talk over the commentary. I don't think the Zoom people can hear it right now. So basically, I'll just go for the commentary itself. Anyways, but on the right side, we have an application called WinMD5 Free. So this is just a free application out on the internet, which checks the file's MD5 hash with an actual MD hash that you're given. So on the left side, so we have ps3 updat.pup. So that's the file that we're going to be checking. And right above it, you see that MD5 dash and followed by a bunch of letters and numbers. That's going to be the hash that we're given. And later, so right here, I'm just basically choosing the file. So with that, it's going to sort of compile that entire file into an MD5. And after that, at the bottom, I'm just going to paste the MD5 in. So there's files like that where we can use to verify the integrity. There's another example right here. Oh, sorry. So this is another example. So on the Azul website, they have a bunch of open JDK files. And on the right side, you have all the downloads, but you also have the checksum of the SHA-256, which is another type of hashing method. So basically, they give you that, and you could use an application or the built-in Windows function to actually check those keys and confirm that the files are what they are. So now we're going to go into the different types. There's a lot of different variations of hashing methods, but the two main ones that we'll be talking about is MD5 and SHA-2. So MD5 is one of the most common hashing methods. However, it's been broken for quite some time, so it isn't particularly safe to use. So this was designed by Ronald Ripset, who is a professor at MIT. And the output for this particular hash is at 128 bits. But as I've mentioned before, this has already been exploited and it's considered unsafe to use. So on the right side, we have a table. So on the left side of the table, that's all the text that's being inputted. And on the right, it's going to be an MD5 hash, and it's going to be 128 characters long. I'm moving on to SHA-2. So this stands for Secure Hash Algorithm 2. There's been two previous ones, SHA-0 and SHA-1, and those two have already been cracked, so they've already been outdated, and SHA-2 is primarily what people are using. And this has been designed by the NSA, and this can output from 224 bits to 512-bit signatures, so it's a lot longer than MD5, which is important for the security of the hashing method itself. And it's still considered safe to use, but there's, I guess, rumors circulating around that it's slowly becoming broken. So we're going to be talking about, I guess, the alternatives to SHA-2 in a future slide. So what exactly does hashing look like? So I have these two pictures right here where I put in the word password and passwords with an S at the end. And you can see that basically the MD5 hash as well as the SHA-1 hash, they're two completely different things. So for password without the S at the end, we have, it starts with 5F4DCC, but on the other side, password with an S, the MD5 hash is going to come out as 48CCCCA. So one really cool thing about hashing is that it's not like a typical cipher in where, I guess, one word is going to turn into like a set value. All the locations of it are randomized. So it makes it incredibly hard to for it to be cracked. So there's a MD5 hash generator right here, which is basically just a website. You can just Google this anywhere. You can basically type some text, press generate, and then it automatically generates an MD5 hash and an SHA-1 hash. There's also websites that do the opposite, where they actually crack the MD5. So it actually translates the MD5 or SHA-1 to an actual text format. So moving on to the issues with hashing, there's something called collision, which can occur. And collision is basically where two different files have the same hash numbers. And that's a very big security concern because then we won't be able to properly verify the integrity of the file. So like on the picture on the right side, we have a good document which may have one hash, but we also may have another document that also has the same hash, but we won't be able to tell between the two. So we can basically, so hackers are basically able to create bad files and have people just download it. And even if they do check the hashes, they'll just run it as is because the hash checks goes through. So there's been collisions found on CRC32, which is another type of hashing method, MD5, as well as some other older hash algorithms. So how exactly does hashing work? So if you think about how ciphers work, it's all a mathematical process, right? And if you're given, say, like 32 bits, or in the case of this picture, eight hashing outputs, then if you go one over and say you make a ninth message, it's going to be one of the 8 messages because there's no space for the hash to sort of incorporate that ninth message. So like over here, so the first 8, they all have unique signatures. However, once we get to the ninth, it's going to have to pick one of the 8 that's already been used. And that's how collision basically occurs. So why exactly does this happen? And this is all basically stemming from mathematical concepts called the birthday paradox, where it's basically where if you have a given number of people, you'll definitely have 2 random people who have the same birthday, right? So this is kind of the same thing. Even though you have different messages, you're limited to how much the hash can handle. And if you go over that hash limit, it's going to end up being one of the same that we've seen before. So collision can also happen depending on the application of the hashing. So something like audio files or DNA files, which have a lot of, I guess, redundant data. And if locality sensitive hashing is used, that's where we see a lot of collision. And locality sensitive hashing is where we have a specific value and it's directly translated to that same spot. So over here on the right, general hashing is generally very random when it starts hashing all the information out. However, locality sensitive, they all stay in the same spot, so it's easier to decrypt. So some of the alternatives that we have to hashing algorithms, one of them is called SHA-3, which is a new algorithm created by NIST. And this outputs roughly the same as SHA-2 from 224 bits to 512. However, the internal state size in SHA-3 is a lot more, and it holds up to 1600 rather than 256 and 512. So this means this can store a lot more, I guess, a bigger table of data. And basically on the right, it's sort of the algorithm that they use to translate these files into hashes. So what methods can we use to prevent collision? There's 2 main ones. One of them is called open addressing and the other one is called separate chaining. Open addressing is a series of steps where the system, if there is a collision, it just keeps searching for an empty slot and inserts the information into the said empty slot. But if that doesn't work, then it's going to keep probing until the key is not equal or equal to an empty slot. So that's part of the search function. And finally, this is a bit risky, but there's also a chance that it may delete a key and just straight up insert it itself because there is no space for it to put the information in. And finally, there's one called separate chaining. And this uses sort of a linked list. So basically they would input 2 information in a list rather than just having one individual one. And that's basically it for my presentation. Yeah, Jamie, do you want to? If there's any questions, just throw them out there, whether it's in the chat or person.
Can you talk a little bit more on your experiences with specifically how you're using hashing to one hack?
Hashing to hack.
Like what application are you using this for?
Application. Typically, this is more sort of like on the defensive side of things. You want to keep all those like passwords and files safe. As also you can use this on the attacking side where you can basically, just send a file and make it look like it's a good file, but in fact, it's actually a Trojan horse or something like that. NIST and SHA. Okay, NIST and SHA, keep that in mind. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions.
So you said that SHA-2 is mostly secure?
Yeah, so there's been tests and it's kind of like going downhill. NIST actually says it's still safe to use for now, and SHA-3 isn't really meant to replace it yet. But there's more, I guess, studies being done. There's a lot of collision attacks that they're doing just to, I guess, verify the integrity of SHA-2. So for the time being, it's still safe to use, but give it a couple years and maybe we'll see some cracks in it.
So if SHA-2 goes down, what will you just SHA-3 only on?
Yeah, so SHA-3, also there's a table right here. So there's actually like different variations of SHA-2. So you can see right here, there's SHA-256, which outputs 256 bits. There's also SHA-512, which is the safer, which is one of the safest hashing algorithms from SHA-2. So rather than sticking with 224 or 256, a lot of people just use 512 or they just use SHA-3.
What kind of tools and programs do you use to modify this kind of stuff though? Like, can we see like a website that you personally use to do this?
Oh yeah. So basically, honestly, all you need to do is just search up MD5 generator or just any generator really, just SHA-1, for example.
And can we see you making like text and stuff?
Yeah, of course. So right over here, we have SHA-1. We also have 512. We'll do 512 for fun. We'll just have the phrase text file in here. And we get this long string that is 512 characters long, I believe. And basically this will be used to, I guess, verify the file integrity of a text file that just says text file.
And this can't be reverse engineered.
Not for now. So until someone finds a good way to properly attack it via collision, then there's a way to, I guess, reverse it. So as I was talking about before, MD5, there's also the generator as well as a decryptor. And the decryptor is basically, was basically created after MD5 was cracked. And yeah, you can also do all of this stuff in terminal too, whether it's Linux or Windows. And there's also like a bunch of like offshoot applications out in the wild that do a lot of this hashing stuff, as well as creating collision files. But these collision files, they also take a very long time to create because it's going through all these ranges of values, kind of just going through them all. So it takes a very long time. I think in the Discord server, actually, there was an article on how the RTX 4090 is incredibly fast. And because it's incredibly fast and cryptology is moving at a slower rate than computing, the RTX 4090 can basically crack a password or a hash in an hour, exactly. So that's kind of another thing to kind of keep in mind. We want to like move at the same pace as computing as well.
So I'm curious, after all the research that's been done, how do you think people are going to respond to how fast this computing power is compared to the security policies that are in place?
Wait, sorry, can you?
Okay, so after the research is done, right? You're seeing that there's articles and things about how these computers are going so fast that they're breaking weaker passwords. So clearly the security policies are not advancing fast enough.
Right.
What kind of ideas do you think are going to start happening now that these hashes, all these other things are being cracked?
Right. So Jordan actually mentioned something really good, which is quantum safe cryptology. And this basically uses I believe it uses quantum. Huh? Oh yeah, cryptography. Sorry, my bad. I get the two mixed up all the time. But basically quantum cryptography, which kind of adds that extra step of complexity. So it makes it incredibly hard, especially for consumer products where we don't like actively have access to quantum computing. Let's see, can you crack or defeat the hash text? Yeah, so actually, let's go back to the MD5 generator. We can just search up MD5 crack. So yeah, there's applications that also do this, but
I think someone speak.
I just wanted to clarify my question. A hash is a one-way function.
Yeah.
Cracking is revealing the contents of something that's encoded. Encoded can be decoded, but hashes can't be cracked. So I think it'd be useful for the audience to explain how these things are quote unquote cracked or defeated even though the algorithm itself is still secure.
Right. So that's actually a good point. So basically, what I was searching up, it's like an MD5 cracker, quote unquote, because what they actually do, they kind of brute force the MD5 hash and kind of forcibly gets the text. It's not actually like straight up translating it, but rather it's just making all these calculations to see the possibilities. There's a thing where you can do, let me see if I can pull it off right now. So let's go into the MD5. We'll make a long line of text, generate it. I was doing this the other night. And basically, if you put this in here, crack hashes. Sorry, what was that? Salted hash. I'm not too sure. I haven't run into that, I guess, terminology when I was looking into it.
If you want to try this demo, try it with a dictionary word,
The dictionary word.
not
Yeah.
random text.
So if we have
Try dictionary.
Hmm?
Try dictionary.
dictionary, all right. Oh,
Yvonne Etniage.
uh, it's reversed. Shit.
I think you broke it.
Yeah, I forget. There's
You
some
have to-
whatever. I'll have actually.
you couldn't
I
have-
forget. There's man. Hold on. There we go. Dictionary. Generate. Copy. We just put this in here. Paste. There we go. Dictionary.
So now how is it able to do that?
I believe it's able to do that. I think it works backwards. I think from a source I read, it's not converting it. It's not really translating it, but rather just straight up brute forcing it and trying to find words that sort of match that hash, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if you read how CrackStation works at the bottom there,
Mhm.
just to add a little bit of clarification for the audience here. MD5 actually is pretty broken, so it might be able to crack that hash directly because the algorithm has vulnerabilities. But SHA-2, like you were talking about, isn't cracked. However, if you put a SHA-2 hash in here for the word dictionary, it probably will tell you that that hash represents the word dictionary, and it knows that because it has a whole library of pre-computed hashes. So basically, there's an English dictionary, a French dictionary, a Spanish dictionary, a technical dictionary, and they hash every single word and phrase inside of it. And then they save a table. It used to be called a rainbow table. There's a little bit different technology used today, but the plain text and its hashed result, which you demonstrate how to do. And then instead of trying to crack the hash, they just look up in their table, hey, do we know that one yet? And if not, then you can pay one of these services to continue computing a whole bunch of stuff until it finds it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Any other questions?
So
Mhm.
if and when NKK2 gets cracked.
Mhm.
So if tomorrow it's on the news that it got cracked,
Mhm.
the companies have like IT on this for it to NKK3 immediately or what?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not too entirely sure how the industry will react once SHA-2 is cracked. I'm pretty sure they would still keep it the same because as Jordan mentioned, how CrackStation works, it's basically just referencing hash to hash. So let's say we have like a long block of text. That hash will need to have some sort of reference point. So we won't actually be able to like translate it straight out. We need to have something else to compare it to. Otherwise, we won't be able to get what it's saying. That makes sense.
Just having like a web, just password or something like that, with actually stuff out on work and like reports. Like if you have like some random like characters like TYUI GH, something like that. With like some numbers at the end or some special characters, that's something more, or it would take a very long time for it to be like cracked, right?
Yeah, so basically, if you have a set of series of letters and numbers, it's definitely going to be harder. We can actually check it right now. So let's just do set of random numbers or word, letters, numbers, and a symbol right there. Copy this. And if we put it in here, we're not actually going to get anything because there is no, I guess, dictionary that translates that exact text that we have. So while these hashing methods may be correct in a way, we can create fake hashes. There's no like very good way to properly translate them from hash to text. Let's see. Probably deprecate SHA-2 in favor of AES 256 and other more rigorous encryption standards. Yeah, so there's a bunch of alternatives to SHA-2 right now, but SHA-2 is still considered safe to go. Any other questions? Oh yeah, definitely. So basically with those types of passwords where it's just a string of random numbers and letters, it's definitely going to help because with some application like this, you won't be able to tell what it is. Even with like the proper software to go through all this, it probably will have an incredibly hard time doing it.
Unless you have what was it,
An RTX 4090 that costs a kidney and a liver.
Yeah, you might also want to go repeat questions to the audience, just so we can get on Zoom.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
we love you, Zoom people.
Any other questions I can take?
Keep silence.
Q silence? Oh, my hearing has like gone bad recently. So.
Give me the understanding. Like. File. Then.
Yeah, so there was a question on how hashes are being used to transfer files and comparing passwords across the internet. So basically, if you input a text, right, input a password, say for example, it would create a hash of that password, and it would then be compared to what the server has. And the server is also going to be holding a hash of the same password. And if the hashes are the same, then it'll go through. So rather than just comparing like the plain text password, both on that's being sent and that's being compared on the server, that would be a bit too risky because a hacker can just come in, steal the passwords, right? But if they just have the hash, they can't do anything with it. So that's why we use hashes or the file signatures to compare the passwords and other files rather than just using plain text. Does that make sense?
So like, I'm logging into Sage. I input say my password is ABC.
Right.
It's not actually comparing ABC to whatever my password is on the evidence. So doing a hack, comparing that hack.
Yeah, exactly. So if you were to put in like ABC for the password, it would get the hash of ABC. It would be sent to Google server, and Google server will also have the hash ABC, and it will basically compare the two. If they're the same, you're good to go. Let's see. Okay. CS major.
I don't think Moena actually made this 276 scheme up, and I know of. Like, pretty sure. I think she actually did. Widow's really cool though.
Mm.
There's also a question of suggesting an exercise.
Suggest an exercise for students to practice encryption. I won't lie, when I was researching, I was more studying the concepts. I had trouble understanding, I guess the practical, or not the practical use, but rather like examples or like places where I can actually get practice. If anyone has, Jordan, if you have any resources that we can use for encryption practice, that would be
There's-
pretty cool if you can drop it.
Lots of fun stuff you can learn about how to grab passwords on the wire or over the wireless with Wireshark. Another one, if you're looking for password hashes, the most generally available one would be a Wi-Fi hash. So WPA2 is the wireless protection protocol.
Right.
In a lab environment, please don't go try to do this on your neighbors on campus. On campus, you're going to get in trouble, so don't even try it at all. But set up a Wi-Fi access point, configure it with a WPA2 password, and then on your Kali Linux VM and a wireless adapter, try to de-authenticate that, and a client will reconnect to it, and you can actually grab the hash that it sends over the network there, over the wireless, I mean. And then if you grab the hash, you can actually work to decrypt it either using one of these online sources, or you can use your own GPUs and try the cracking software. There's lots and lots of resources out there for password cracking, for WPA hash grabbing. You can also learn about web applications and how they pass hashes. There's also NTLM, which is network hashes for Windows Active Directory. All of these things you can set up in a lab environment with your fast compatriots and connect to them and start sending passwords over the network and start collecting them and start seeing how you can crack them yourself. One of the biggest reasons that GPUs were very expensive before the crypto thing got really expensive or exciting, cryptocurrency, I mean, was password cracking. The more powerful the GPU and the more of them that you have, the faster that you can create hashes, basically, to check these things. So
Right.
just start with something simple. If you set up a Wi-Fi AP and you have a client, you can DDoS it, denial of service it, kick it off the network, have it reconnect and collect that hash. And just as an exercise, you learn so much by doing that. First of all, you learn so much by building the thing, because if you've never configured an AP or if you've never set up VirtualBox, you have to do those things first. So maybe a good example for next Friday or something like that.
Right. And that also kind of goes back to the question about passwords being compared. So basically we can use WireGuard to check the internet traffic and basically see the hashes being sent to and from the client to the server, grab those hashes, and we can use it. We can basically crack it by using a website like this, or if it's a more complicated password, we can use, different software that uses hardware to decrypt it. Yeah, I believe there are commands in Kali. I don't remember them off the top of my head right now because they're a bit on the longer side of commands. So yeah, if you just Google like hashing commands for Kali, it should pop up right there. Yes, I guess this is a website that was sent, and basically this can, yeah,
Never seen this before.
I haven't either.
No, oh Manny, thank you for that. That's really cool.
Thank you, Manny. I'll definitely take a deeper look at it on another day, maybe tomorrow.
But it looks like
Password, right? So we have hashing, which is one method. Oh, right, yeah. So the question was, what's the alternative to basically hashing, or what we've shown today? So there's hashing and encryption, which are actually two different things. So hashing in this case is basically just straight up like turning text into something that we can't revert back, right? Because the way that Crackstation works, it's basically referencing a bunch of hashes. So what we can do, so encryption is another thing where we basically convert a file into unreadable text, right? But we're also given a key, and we can use that key to basically decrypt it and turn it back to plain text. So encryption, that's also a bigger thing. I think it's more suitable for like, personal use. So yeah. Any other questions or? Okay. All right. So that's basically it for today's meeting. Thanks for coming by. I'm going to.
Does anyone have any club questions or anything? No, I know that we asked about membership. I just want to ask over Zoom. Also, does anybody, by just the last chance call, if anybody did not get into our attendance sheet, let me go on screen share that for y'all real quick. But also, like I said, does anybody have any questions about paid memberships? If anyone has questions about anything else, please let me know. I'll be outside. For those of you who are out here, for those of you over Zoom, please DM me over Discord, Slack, whatever. I just want to make sure that we have all of our questions answered, and have a nice rest of your day. See y'all.